He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
All right, welcome to the Marlow Show. I'm Alex Marlow. I'm in Washington, D.C. right now, and we are off to the races with the launch of Breaking the Law, my third book, and I would say my most urgent. It felt like the one book of the three that I've written that it feels like it needed to be written. And if you're new, welcome. Seeing a nice uptick in followers across my platforms today, which is, I'm very grateful for all that. It is you really put yourself out there in these moments, but I think that this is a worthy cause. I was thinking about what makes the book important today. I had a long night. I was in a red eye. They were like serving too much food in the red eye. So you guys got to help me with this. I'm a red eye guy because I would generally prefer to not, I don't sleep well anyway. And I kind of sleep well on the plane, I think, relative to most people. So I kind of just suck it up and do the red eye when I'm going across country. But there was way too much eating going on. And I was doing a lot of judging because there were a lot of people who were just eating the hot airplane food. And I was thinking it's 11 p.m. flight. Like, are you having a full meal at midnight anyway in your life? Like, are you bringing full meals on the plane? You're getting served hot food on the plane. But does that mimic your real life? Like, in real life, would you serve yourself, eggs Benny's at midnight? Like, you don't do that. So just go to sleep and then wake up and get a nice breakfast at the airport or something if you want, or better yet, do some intermittent fasting. It's good for you. It kind of helps out a lot. Anyway, so I'm in my unpleasant flight, trying to kind of chip away at my speech I gave today for Young America's Foundation. And then I had a wild day of media. I was on the Clay and Buck Show. I was on the O'Reilly Show. I was on Breitbart News Daily with Mike Slater. I was on Steve Bannon's War Room, first time ever. And I think I'm on again tomorrow as well, hopefully. So we'll run that back, which will be pretty cool. And I gave this speech to Young America's Foundation where I'm really getting to lay out in front of an audience of college students who won't have this level of detail, the type of level of detail my go-to daily audience might have. And then again, if you're new, welcome. Glad you're here. And trying to think about what really matters. And I think I broke it down into three things. The first thing that I'm trying to do is connect the dots and explain to people in terms that they can understand, that they can follow. This complex web of 6 cases against Trump really was designed to rig an election. And there were a lot of bad guys in play, a lot of people who I believe were breaking the law, both literally and figuratively. People who are operating illegally. I think lawyers could prove this. Law enforcement could prove this. I'm not a legal person, so I'm not the best authority on this. But that was happening, but it was also breaking our system of law and order itself, which is fundamental to democracy. You can't have a democracy if you don't have law and order. And the exact people kept telling us how important democracy is are the ones who do not want us to have law and order. And I think tracing the lineage back is very important. I go to, of course, how illegal immigration ruined Los Angeles. I go through the Joe Biden, the borking of Robert Bork, and the high-tech lynching of Clarence Thomas. I go back to FDR. I talk about this history. I broke down some of this on yesterday's show, but it's important. I'm excited to share something with you that's incredibly close to my heart. The people of Israel. The Bible teaches us that in a world full of broken promises, one covenant remains unshakable. God's eternal promise, his unwavering commitment to Israel, his beloved people. And now more than ever, God is calling Christians everywhere to support Israel, to be a living testimony that his promises endure forever. That's why I've chosen to partner with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews as a way to align myself with God's eternal plan. For over 40 years, this wonderful ministry has faithfully provided food, care, and life-saving aid to Israel's most vulnerable, the poor, the elderly, many of whom are Holocaust survivors. And when crisis strikes, like rocket attacks or urgent humanitarian needs, the IFCJ is already on the ground responding with compassion and support. So join me in standing with Israel and declaring God's faithfulness to all generations. To learn more, find out how you can help, visit ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org. Because it shows you the left doesn't look at the Constitution and venerate it the way we do. They look at it in terms of, well, if it gets in our way politically, then we're just going to break it and we're going to see what happens. And when we have reinforced one time after the next, there are two tiers of justice in this country. That Hillary Clinton can get away with her server. She can get away with her ties to Russia, where she's selling our uranium. At the same time, the Russians are loading up the Clinton Foundation, and Bill Clinton's getting a bunch of money from Russian oligarchs, give speeches, or a speech at least. If she can get away with that, start sending a signal that, maybe there are two tiers of justice. And now we're in this moment where we're revisiting some of the Russiagate hoax. We're revisiting some of the things that people in this audience, you and I, had gone through day in and day out. This just absurd farce that Donald Trump, who had been tougher on Russia, both rhetorically in the campaign and then in action as president, as any other of his contemporaries, was also a Russian asset. And the evidence, still the only hard evidence that was supplied was, a $100,000 ad buy to Facebook. Just something so small, so minute, that you would never even consider that this would possibly classify as some sort of a collusion to rig an election. And yet that's exactly what was told to us. That's exactly what was conveyed to us for years. As I note over and over, my best appearance on YouTube, if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole of my videos, is when I was on Bill Maher in 2017, and we were about 9 months in the Russia hoax. And I called it and I said, I've seen enough. This is not going to be a top tier issue for us. And if I'm wrong, I will come back and eat crow. And I wasn't wrong. And I've never been invited back. I would like to go back. And maybe for this book, I don't know, maybe he'll see something he likes in it. And maybe we'll talk about it. But now we're in this spirit where we're starting to do some of the subpoenas, and we learned some good things today. We learned that the Clintons, Comey, Garland, Mueller, all ordered to testify in the Epstein probe. I like that spirit coming from James Comer. We also learned that there is an investigation for the Hatch Act violations, perhaps by Jack Smith. Jack Smith related to the special counsel that is heavily featured and gets a huge portion of my attention in Breaking the Law. These are good starts, but what is important to emphasize is that we cannot allow for people to feel as though there were two tiers of justice in this country, because if there are, then that is going to erode the public trust, and promises are made, promises must be kept. This is a fundamental point to MAGA. There's a fundamental point to what Trump ran on, and this is a fundamental way to keep those voters who might be new to our coalition. And you're not going to keep them if you don't feel like there's at least an earnest effort that's taking place to hold the bad guys accountable to the best extent you can. And they do got to see some results. As Bannon was just phrasing it, you got to stick the landing. I think we got to stick the landing in some of these. And I provide, I think, a pretty good blueprint of where the investigations need to be. I point out what are the most obvious pain points. I'm sure there are others I didn't think of because, again, I don't have the benefit of subpoena power. I don't have the benefit of access to information the way a congressional committee might. But I identify some stuff where clearly there is impropriety on the lawfare front. But I want to connect it to the Russiagate stuff that's in the news today, because the lawfare against Trump would not have been possible if there was accountability for Russiagate. If Clapper and Brennan and Comey hadn't gotten book deals and cable news contributorships, but had instead gotten handcuffs and perp walks for what they did, then there would not have been any of this lawfare because people wouldn't have risked it. They wouldn't have thought it was worth it. Well, let's try to take out Trump. Let's try to use extra legal means to do so. People would not have gone down that road unless they thought they could get away with it, unless they were pretty sure they knew they could get away with it. Because remember, Hillary Clinton got away with all that stuff. The server and the wiping it and the 30,000 emails. And the fact she got away with all that, unbelievable. And the fact that the Russiagate was allowed to continue and still continues to some degree. If you pin down your average MSNBC viewer, they're thinking this thing is still legit. So that is why the second point that I want to make. The first point being, I do think providing a history and a analysis with a clear delineation of all the detail and all the corruption of the major Trump cases and where it came from, that was a worthy task. But there's another point here that I think is really important to emphasize, that this is a warning. This is a warning for 2026. This is a warning for 2028. This is a warning for 2032. That if we don't hold to account the people who clearly conspired to break the law, literally and figuratively, to subvert our democracy, to rig the 2024 election against Donald Trump, to bankrupt him, to jail him, just the thought that he was able to win that election when he was enduring 6 of these trials at the same time. They're hard to keep straight in your head when you read it. Hopefully until my book came out, then it's hopefully easy to keep them straight. But when I went in the book, I didn't have them all straight completely. I paid attention to this stuff pretty closely. To keep them all straight, he not only had to keep them all straight, he had to win them. He had to win these cases. And then when he did lose them, to try to save face publicly because he was in the middle of an election. He's trying to campaign to save his livelihood, to save his name. You remember when your name used to matter in this country? It doesn't even matter anymore. What's that about? Is that a positive? How are we doing with that? Not just saving his name. He's not just saving his legacy. He's trying to help this country, try to become president again, and try to get some of those values, those America First values, the fixing the immigration system, the resetting of global trade, the ending the Biden inflation, getting good judges on the court, all the stuff he's doing. He's trying to get all that done, and he's having to do it from a courthouse because there's a vast conspiracy of people, not just who are breaking the law, which of course is a big thing, but thought they could get away with all this stuff. And that to me is truly a warning to all of you that if we rest on our laurels and we start doing second tier things and we don't prioritize the agenda, or if we continue to make mistakes like the Epstein files round 1, and when there's no round 2 and round 1's kind of a dud, we can't do that stuff if we want to take lawfare seriously. If we want to take defeating the superstructure seriously, and we do, because that's their best weapon. Their people are not charismatic. They're not smart. They are not as seasoned as they once were. I used to have much more veneration for the left. I used to think that their tactics were better than ours. Their energy was better. Now they've got a lot of people who fund things, and they've got some charismatic people, but not many. And they have almost no ideas that are populist. We took all the populist ideas. We've been doing this for 10 years. It's been a huge part of our success. Our success meaning the America First side of the movement, the Breitbart type readers, the people who've been with me and been with us for over a decade. We've made such strides because we've co-opted the best the Democrats had. In the meantime, they've gotten worse, they've gotten weaker, but they've gotten stronger in one regard, and that's lawfare. And they've been emboldened because no one has actually held them to account. So this is the warning that we got to do it now. It's time. The Hatch Act for Jack Smith, fine. Whatever. Do it. It's not just Jack Smith. He was unconstitutionally appointed by Merrick Garland. So are we going to ask Merrick Garland what was going on there? Was he aware that it was an unconstitutional, a violation of the Appointments Clause? How about anyone in the Joe Biden White House who may have noticed that Jack Smith was not accountable to anyone? It was an illegal position, and he had no accountability for 18 months so he could gather information, subpoena files, get documents, release them to the Washington Post, spin up the whole country into a frenzy over this stuff when he's a clear partisan and he had no accountability to anyone. Who knew it was illegal? Did anyone know? Were there any conversations that took place about the illegality of Jack Smith? I don't know. I would like to find out. And I feel like that's something we could find out. I feel like that's something that we could find out if we choose to. And so that's just the first case. I want to figure out what Reid Hoffman was talking about when he was bankrolling the Eugene Carroll case during all of his White House visits during that time. I want to figure out what Nathan Wade was talking about during his 8-hour visits to the White House, the family lawyer who was added to Fani Willis's legal team. I want to hear about what Jeff DeSantis was up to, the former Biden staffer who went down to Georgia to join Fani Willis's team. What were those conversations like? Who came up with the idea for Matthew Colangelo, the number 3 guy in the DOJ, to go down to the Manhattan District Court, a JV job if there ever was one, to try to take out Trump, instead of staying where he was at and perhaps being in line for, I don't know, FBI director, maybe Supreme Court seat? Some of these points I made yesterday, some of them I will continue to make because I want to emphasize these. I want these to become mainstream. But so point 1, I think this history is important, is necessary. But point 2, the warning. If we sufficiently warned people that they weren't done at Russiagate, that they were just plotting what was next, I think that we might not have been caught quite as sleeping on the lawfare stuff. It worked out in the end because Trump is so resilient. Because I think we mostly saw through it as a voter base. But what has been done to get justice for President Trump? Nothing as far as I can tell. But we're starting to see the effort, and I like it. I applaud it. I encourage it. But it's got to expand. And there's a lot to do, because I'm not saying that we shouldn't look for justice for Trump at the expense of the Epstein stuff and at the expense of the Russiagate stuff. We should. But we've got to fix the lawfare issue before it bites us in 2026 or 2028. The last point, and this is one that I will make a lot, and forgive me if it sounds like it's a bit of a pander, because it's actually not. It's practical. But the last key point here with this book that I think is really important to emphasize, I've been emphasizing, is the only surefire way to win is not trusting the government. I believe in James Comer. I believe in Tulsi Gabbard. I'm mixed on Pam Bondi. I don't know, but I'm not a hater. But the main thing that I can say right now is the only way to know that we're going to have a positive outcome here is if we stay vigilant and diligent as a movement, that we stay strong, we stay informed, we stay charismatic, funny, fit, whatever it takes to try to bring people to our side. Because this is a battle that will go on. And it will go on until there aren't nearly as many liberals on the bench. That's the problem. That's the fundamental problem. Too many liberals are elected. Too many liberals are appointed. And none of this is going to stop unless there aren't as many liberals appointed or elected in this country. So that's on us. That's on us, the voters. And I go through some historical context where we've been able to claw back a stronger foothold in the legal apparatus in this country simply by winning elections. And that's a big thing. And that's why when I got an opportunity to speak to Young America's Foundation today, I took the red eye, flew out right away, wanted to do that because I want to try to fire up the younger people. I want to try to fire up people who maybe checked in because they like Trump and might have checked out because they were alienated by the Epstein stuff. Maybe they don't like Israel as much as I do. I don't agree with them, but I still want them in our coalition in general. I don't want people checked out if their pet issue, their favorite issue wasn't on the front burner in the first 6 months of the Trump administration. And one of the ways to make sure that they're still here, promises made, promises kept. Promises made, promises kept. We've done so much good. I talk about Andrew in the speech, and I'll play the speech. I'll release it as a show, hopefully this week, maybe even tomorrow. But I talked about this whole, Sydney Sweeney phenomenon that we've been having fun with, where the right used to be the joyless, sexless scolds, or at least that was our reputation. And then now it's the left who are the joyless, sexless scolds, unless it's sex with a tranny. And we're the fun ones. And we get to have playful jean ads. And we get to have bubbly blondes with big cans. Like, that's ours now. And they just get Lizzo and men winning women's swimming events. That's incredible that we did that. I mean, Andrew Breitbart, I can tell you, I do not like to channel the dead, even the great Andrew, who I knew so well. But I'll tell you, he would love that. He would be absolutely over the moon at how far we've come as a movement to be the fun crowd. But how do we maintain it? This is a coalition that is broad. It's a huge tent with a capital Y. And we need to be making sure that we are doing enough to make sure that those people in that huge tent are the type of people who are feeling as though they're being listened to and heard. Because the people who are just here, just getting here, I don't want them just to stay here for a little bit and just to show up in general elections. I want them to be a part of the fabric. And I want to get back to a place where we can have nuance, we can have debate, something in our movement that we haven't had in a little bit, where things aren't black and white, and then we can really start building with trust. We've got to reestablish the trust. And the first way to reestablish the trust is heads have got to roll for this lawfare. People have got to get investigated, and people have got to have privileges revoked, perhaps prison sentences, whatever it is, but we need a full accounting for what's going on. All right, sometimes what's fun when you're on these book tours that I've been on is that you get to make new friends, but sometimes your new friends kind of feel like old friends. I talked to Clay Travis and Buck Sexton for the first time on their show earlier today, and I will tell you, I've been drinking a lot of their coffee. Crockett Coffee, they got a great coffee company. You guys know my rule. I'm not selling you any consumables that I would not give to myself and my family. And I will tell you, their dark roast is absolutely terrific. I've tried their mild roast, which I enjoyed. They've even got a light roast for those of you who don't like a little bitter. I like a little bitter, though. I like that. Decaf version. They got a mushroom organic blend. So they're hip. These guys know what they're doing. Clearly very smart guys, have been successful in everything they've done. And this is coffee brewed. It is a great brew made in our nation's heartland where it was roasted. I guess I don't think the beans were made there, but they're roasted there. And you can feel just like a Western settler or as a podcaster when you're consuming this stuff. It's good. I highly recommend it. And if you use the promo code Alex at checkout, crockettcoffee.com, you get 20% off your first order. crockettcoffee.com. Alex gets you 20% off. Why not try it? Supports good people. And it's a great cup of coffee. Enjoy. That's the big message for today. That's what I'm all about. As you guys can see, I'm out of my usual set. I'm on another sort of semi-red eye. I will be hopping on a plane, I think at like 10 o'clock or something. You know why? We get a moon bounce coming tomorrow. I texted this to someone and they didn't they didn't react to it at all. And I'll call him out because I think he'll like it if he hears this. But John Ashbrook, who does the Ruthless podcast, which is a great podcast, he said that he asked if I was in DC, and I said I just got here, but I'm heading back out. We have a moon bounce coming tomorrow to the house. And he didn't say anything. And I'm just wondering if he thinks I'm just a weird guy or if it's, you could do the math. It's a Master Marlow turns 7 tomorrow. So I'll be back there for that. But I'll be popping up all over media, hopefully on your favorite shows. And if not, then drop me a line, aloha@alexmarlow.com. And I want to be on everyone's radar. I don't do this stuff for my health. It is, yes, you get a paycheck for it, but that's not why. It's just too hard. You don't do it just for that. You do this because you're trying to change the world. That's the point of why you write this stuff. And it's pie in the sky. You don't think it's going to happen, but I feel like that Breaking the Law should start some very deeply meaningful conversations. And the type of conversations that I think that it could make the country go back to valuing law and order. That's what this is all about. All right, that's today's show. Thanks to Misty for putting it together, and to all of you in the audience telling 10,000 friends and family members about what we do on the show here. And I will talk to you tomorrow.